in the hallowed halls of Western educational institutions, where knowledge is forged and minds shaped. There exists a curious blind spot, a historical oversight that echoes through time. For within these venerable walls, the story of anti-Semitism unfolds unevenly. Its chapters often truncated, its global reach underestimated. Europe, the cradle of civilization, the birthplace of enlightenment. Here the roots of anti-Jewish sentiment run deep, etched into medieval manuscripts, whispered in cathedral shadows. The pogroms, the ghettos, the unspeakable horrors of the Holocaust. They all bear Europe's tragic signature. But beyond these familiar narratives lies a parallel tale, a tale of distant lands, where the sands of the Middle East cradle secrets of their own. The Middle East, a crossroads of cultures, where ancient bazaars hummed with trade, where minarets pierced the sky. Here too, anti-Semitism found its foothold, and in the heart of it all stood a nation, Iraq. In the shadowed corridors of history, where whispers echo and malevolence takes root, there lies a chilling conversation, a moment that would shape the course of humanity. It was 1922, and Adolf Hitler, not yet the dictator he would become, engaged in a fateful dialogue with Joseph Hell. Joseph Hell, a retired major turned journalist, sat across from the man who would unleash devastation upon the world. Their words are etched into ink, preserved in time. "What would you do," I asked, "if you had absolute power over the Jews?" His response was chillingly precise.
"The destruction of the Jews will be my first and most important job. Gallows after gallows will rise, perhaps on Munich's Marienplatz. As many as traffic allows, they will hang until they stink. And as soon as they are cut down, the next group will ascend."
Hitler's words were not idle threats, they were the seeds of genocide, the blueprint for horrors yet to unfold. His manifesto, Mein Kampf, would amplify this malevolence, but the roots ran deeper. The impact of this conversation extended far beyond Europe. Iraq, too, would bear witness to hatred. The Middle East, a hub for anti-Semitic rhetoric, became a crucible of suffering. The Middle East, a center for ancient civilizations, of whispered prayers and fervent dreams. Here too, the Nazi propaganda machine churned, weaving its poison. Arab nationalism and Islamic extremism grappled with their own demons. In the tumultuous year of 1937, against the backdrop of a land torn by conflict, a figure emerged, a religious leader with a dark agenda. His name, Hajj Amin al-Husseini. But al-Husseini's legacy would stretch far beyond the borders of then mandatory Palestine. Al-Husseini, the arch-enemy of the Jews, evaded an arrest warrant. His crime? Aligning himself with the 1936 to 1939 Arab revolt against British rule. Fleeing the clutches of justice, he sought refuge first in Lebanon, then in the ancient land of Iraq. Al-Husseini's history goes earlier than this. His journey from Pan-Arabism to a distinct form of Palestinian nationalism began early. As far back as 1920, he staunchly opposed Zionism. His leadership during the 1920 Nebi Musa riots led to a 10-year sentence, but ultimately the British granted him a pardon. Al-Husseini, a charismatic leader, spewed forth his anti-Semitic beliefs like a malevolent wind. His words resonated with fervor, finding fertile ground in the hearts of those who sought answers in chaotic times. But this was no isolated phenomenon. Al-Husseini's path intersected with other players on the global stage. Enter Rashid Ali al-Gailani, a firebrand revolutionary who danced on the edge of destiny. In 1941, he led an uprising against the British, fueled by orders from the Axis powers. Al-Gailani and Al-Husseini, two men bound by ambition and shared hatred. Their clandestine meetings echoed with whispers of alliances and treachery. As the Second World War raged, they plotted, sowed seeds of Nazism, and fanned the flames of anti-Semitism. But rewind further, peel back the layers. Al-Gailani had once danced with another partner, the enigmatic German ambassador Fritz Grobba. Grobba, a cunning diplomat, harbored a secret mission: to translate Hitler's infamous manifesto, Mein Kampf, into Arabic. Yet Grobba was no mere translator. He wove a web of linguistic nuance, deliberately altering meanings. Anti-Semitism became anti-Jews, a calculated move to appease sensitive Arab sentiments. The poison remained, but its packaging changed. Rashid Ali al-Gailani's uprising against the pro-British government in Iraq ended in failure, leaving a power vacuum. In the aftermath, he fled alongside the four officers who had collaborated in the ill-fated coup.
Road sign in Iraq. The RAF signpost at Habanya tells you that you're a damn sight nearer Baghdad than London. This hotspot, bordering the floodwaters of the Euphrates River, was the scene of the treacherous attack made by Rashid Ali and his rebels against the aerodrome. Supported by German aircraft, an attempt was made to release the floodwaters by blowing up the dike and so swamp the flat alluvial plains.
Hajj Amin al-Husseini escaped too. But this time to Italy and then to Germany. Al-Husseini's brief but impactful presence in Iraq left an indelible mark. His ability to sway the masses through both anti-Semitic rhetoric and religious slogans is a testament to the power of words and ideology. On June 1st, 1941, following the fall of the pro-Axis government led by Rashid Ali al-Gailani, anti-Jewish riots erupted. Over the course of the next 2 days, mobs, incited by inflammatory rhetoric and fueled by a mixture of anger and opportunism, descended upon the Jewish neighborhoods of Baghdad, in what's known as al-Fahud, which means the escape of the Jews in Arabic. The violence was brutal and systematic. Homes were looted, synagogues desecrated, and countless lives were lost. Estimates of the death toll vary, with figures ranging from several hundred to over 1,000, while thousands more were injured.
Although we lived for a long, long time with the Arabs without really having problems, but June the 1st, 1941, in our house, we heard a lot of noise outside, people shouting, "Idbah al-Yahud, Idbah al-Yahud," which means cut the throat of the Jews. I climbed the tree as high as I can just to try to see if I can what's happening outside.
You were then what?
9 years old.
9 years old.
And I saw a lot of people there with swords in their hands, some rifles and shooting. And I just couldn't understand why they shouting, "Idbah al-Yahud." What the hell did I do at 9 years old? They were killing me. I saw that our landlord, who was our next door neighbor, we called him a Haji because he went to Mecca in those days and he wore a green turban. He took a chair and he sat right in front of our house. So when the mob came into our house, they stopped right in front of him. I didn't know what he was saying, or they saying to him. I only found out later that he told them there is a woman there, a widow, with many young children, and she asked for his protection. If they want to go in to take them, to kill them, they have to kill himself first. So we were really saved by this religious Muslim. Otherwise I wouldn't be here. And then they started putting fires to the houses. So that whole evening and night, fires are all over. And still screams were people being murdered and raped. Until the next day, the British Army came in, and together with the mayor of Baghdad, the police took over again, and we were saved.
The chaos that ensued left deep scars on the community, shattering the sense of security that had prevailed for generations. The Farhud, often dubbed the Kristallnacht of the East, unfolded against a backdrop of political turmoil. Both events spanned 2 days. Kristallnacht occurred on November 9th to 10th, 1938, in Nazi Germany, as anti-Jewish policies escalated before World War II. Meanwhile, the Farhud erupted on June 1st to 2nd, 1941, in Iraq, coinciding with British intervention and the downfall of a pro-Axis regime. The grim commonality between both acts is evident. They were organized acts of violence directed at Jewish communities. During Kristallnacht, Nazi authorities and paramilitary groups orchestrated assaults on Jewish homes, businesses, and synagogues, resulting in extensive destruction and the arrest of numerous Jews. Similarly, the Farhud saw mobs descending upon Jewish neighborhoods in Baghdad, looting, vandalizing property, and committing violent acts against individuals. In both instances, anti-Jewish hatred manifested systematically and brutally. Documents from the Iraqi government archive reveal that a committee was swiftly formed by the Council of Ministers in the aftermath of the tragic events. The unrest and attacks on the Jewish community were attributed to several key factors. First, the German Commission in Iraq. This commission propagated its propaganda among Iraqi army officers, contributing to the volatile atmosphere. Second, the Mufti of Jerusalem, Amin al-Husseini. His arrival in Iraq intensified tensions. Al-Husseini leveraged the Palestinian cause, invoking Arabism and Islam, even issuing orders from his home to politicians and military leaders. Third, Palestinian and Syrian teachers. In schools, they were worse than al-Husseini in brainwashing students and agitating them against the Jews. Fourth, German Arabic radio station. Operating with permission in Iraq, this station disseminated misinformation about Palestine and the Jewish population. After escaping Iraq, the Grand Mufti arrived in Germany. Al-Husseini sought an audience with the architects of hatred, the very men who orchestrated the Holocaust: Hitler, the Führer, Himmler, the architect of genocide, Ribbentrop, the suave diplomat. Their common ground? A shared disdain for Jews. The Mufti sent Hitler 15 drafts, meticulously crafted declarations, crossed continents. Their destination? Berlin, where Adolf Hitler awaited. Al-Husseini sought an alliance, an Axis pact that would echo through the Middle East. The Mufti invoked the Palestinian cause, the struggle against British colonialism, as a rallying cry. He painted Jews as the common enemy, a thread connecting Berlin to Baghdad, Damascus, and beyond. One draft stood out, a call for Germany and Italy to denounce the Jewish home in Palestine. Al-Husseini's words danced on the edge of legality, invoking Arab rights and interests, but it was more, a veiled plea. "Let us solve the Jewish problem," he whispered, "as you do in the Axis countries." His vision? A Middle East cleansed of Jewish presence. Hitler hesitated. The Eastern Front consumed him, but al-Husseini persisted. The Palestinian and Syrian teachers, his foot soldiers, indoctrinated youth against Jews, but this time words became actions. In Iraq, a clandestine force inspired by al-Husseini emerged, a legion forged in secrecy, fueled by ambition. Its name? The Free Arabian Legion. 20,000 strong, they hailed from POW camps scattered across Nazi Germany. Their mission? To pave the way for Nazi-friendly regimes in the Middle East, specifically Iraq. As officially stated, their mission seemed noble, to aid in the fight against British forces in Iraq. But whispers echoed through their ranks, whispers of a darker purpose. The Nazi-backed revolt against British rule in Iraq failed. They were ready to strike. Yet Britain's swift response quashed their hopes. The uprising crushed, the Legion's chance slipping away. Instead, they found themselves far from Mesopotamia, ensnared in the Nazi occupation of Greece. Their loyalty tested, their dreams deferred. The Free Arabian Legion has a different mission now, serving Nazi Germany. The Grand Mufti and the Iraqi nationalists' main plan for the Free Arabian Legion was not only to drive the British, but their plot also unfolded, a web spun by shadowy figures. The Jews, the indigenous people of the land since the time of the Babylonians, were the target. Their plan for extermination was whispered in coded messages, veiled behind nationalist and Islamist fervor. The Free Arabian Legion's path was irrevocably altered when their initial plot faltered. Like a river diverted by unforeseen terrain, they flowed toward new battlefronts, seeking purpose and redemption. Greece, a land steeped in myth and struggle, became their ordeal. As Europe was engulfed in war and Germany suffered heavy losses, the Arabian Free Legion found themselves back on German soil. There, they fought alongside Nazi soldiers until Berlin faced siege and ultimately fell under the control of the Allies. The majority of Legion members met grim fates, either killed or captured, though a few managed to escape. Farhud in Iraq stands as just one chapter in a broader narrative, one that unfolded across Jewish communities throughout the Arab world. These communities faced similar, if not graver, fates. Long before World War II, anti-Jewish sentiments simmered in several Arab countries. The war intensified this animosity due to the rise of nationalist and Islamic movements. Jews encountered discrimination, exclusion, and at times, violence based on their ethnicity and religion. In Iraq, discriminatory laws were enacted, Jews were dismissed from government jobs, and their properties confiscated. The year 1969 witnessed public executions of Jewish citizens under the Iraqi regime. Their only crime was that they were Jews. The persistence of anti-Jewish sentiment in the Arab world today has deep roots, an extension of a complex historical narrative. The bitter consequences of this fusion are now visible through the emergence of groups that specifically target Jews. Tragically, this phenomenon extends beyond the Arab world and also affects Western societies. Yet, amidst the global focus on Palestinian refugees, a plight well documented, the story of Jewish refugees from Arab countries remains largely overlooked. These Jewish populations faced immense challenges, their narratives buried in the sands of time. Ignored by the media and marginalized in academic and public discourse, their resilience persists. History may forget, but it cannot erase their struggles, their losses, or their spirit.